Hi, honey.
Hey, Bo.
How are you?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's a Wednesday night, and we were planning on recording this on Sunday. Mm-hmm. And I pretty much do my editing and like clip, like cutting up and editing, and all of that work on Thursdays. So we're cutting it really close right now in terms of shooting the podcast.
I know. It was planned for Sunday.
Yeah, I know.
And like probably an hour before we were supposed to sit down and do it, I basically was like, I just got to be honest. I'm like not in like a flow state to do this.
It was probably, he gave me a couple hours, but
I gave you a couple hours.
It was definitely a little like, I guess like unexpected. And then we had to figure out when the hell we were going to fit it in. Mm-hmm. And tonight's the only time that we can. So it's actually not that bad.
No.
This is a good relaxing time of the week. Hump day. End of hump day. Going into the back end of the week.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. But it's but now that means that we've been, it's been a week and a half since our last episode, but that was the episode
2.5 weeks since just us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that was the episode with Julia. So it's been 2.5 weeks since we've given any kind of an update.
Yeah.
On what we have going on. So
have your 2.5 weeks been?
They've been solid. They've been interesting. They've been tricky at times. I would say like overwhelmingly like on the positive side, like all this stuff that I was going through about a month ago, whenever that all was, with the panic attacks and the psilocybin experience and all of that. Things have been like pretty good, I think. Like I feel quite good.
You've been very productive.
Very, very productive.
Yeah.
And my mindset just feels a lot better. I wouldn't say that I'm like 100% like I typically am. Like certainly not. But I'm definitely like closer to that 100% than I was about a month ago or whenever that was.
For sure. And you're having those. You do have those days or those feelings all of a sudden. You're picking up on it very quickly. Yeah. And like figuring it out, like what's happening.
I've also been meditating for like an hour every morning. Which again, historically,
are you like I guess explain that. Like, are you getting into it like right away in that hour? Like, are you getting in the zone in the meditative state right away, or is there like some distraction? Like, kind of what's happening?
It depends on the day, and typically I meditate 20 minutes a day. It used to be 15, and then it turned to 20, and now it's literally like an hour, awesome. Which is it really is awesome. It like in some ways. What's really remarkable about it is none of it feels like a waste of time. Like, I want to get my day started. There's like so much, of course, that I do in a day.
Yeah.
And part of me wants to be like, oh man, you're taking an hour to meditate, an extra 40 minutes to meditate every morning. But I can tell you, like, it's been critical, kind of. And again, like to your point, like how are they going? It definitely depends on the day. There's some days where I immediately get into it, and there's other days where it takes me a full 20 just to like really just even settle in, let alone like lock in. But it's been tremendously helpful for so many reasons. Like, I'm not gonna like get into like all the meditating stuff, but when there's a certain frequency that you find at a certain point, and it kind of comes and goes. It's hard to like really lock in, at least for me, for like a really extended period of time. But like finding that little frequency, and you kind of like ride it, like riding a wave a little bit. And you know what I'm talking about there. Finding that is something that like historically in that 20-minute meditation, sometimes it would happen really briefly, sometimes the entire 20 minutes would be riding that wave, and then like many times like you never really get there. And now doing it for an hour, I've been getting there like every day. I've been riding that wave every day, and like the clarity, and again, like I know it's not a waste of time, because rather than kind of like moseying into the day after the meditation, I am like boom, like shot out of a cannon, like ready to go, because every other thought or distraction or emotion that could have bothered me is now like gone.
Yeah.
And I think that's clearly one of the reasons why the last few weeks has been a little bit better for me.
Yeah. And again, switching like our meditation from, we've talked about this before, but like switching it from like the evening after the day is done to like starting with it in our day has been, I think, like very, very important and like a game changer for me for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
But I mean, like, feeling better. I don't have, my pussy hasn't been acting up or anything like that.
Pussy's been calm.
Yeah. We had some good wins over the last couple of weeks too. I was invited to train with the coaches over at On It last week. So about a month ago, we were at a breathwork class. I met a really awesome dude there. His name is John Sandoval. He's a trainer at On It. And like, we just kind of clicked immediately.
Yeah.
He's a really, really nice, awesome guy. We had a lot in common. And he was pretty much like, you got to get out to On It. Like, where do you train at? Like, you should come train at On It.
He was like insistent about it and like kept bringing it. Like, you didn't even have to like really ask anything. He was just like, you need to come. Here's the information. This is what you need to go to.
And we've been to On It before.
It's awesome.
I love On It. It is the best gym in Austin, without question.
For sure.
It has the best community. It has the best coaches. It has the best classes, like probably the most intense classes.
Aesthetic,
yeah,
the like
cool.
equipment, like everything.
And
it's
got
really nice.
You know, Aubrey Marcus, who I kind of like. You know, I wouldn't. He's not on my hero list because there's only 3 people on my hero list, but he's like up there in terms of like people who like I kind of aspire to some extent. So the fact that he's associated and that Joe Rogan has like a history with it, like makes it all the cooler. But even those like more like prestige-y things aside, like it is the best gym in Austin, and he was really, like you said, like adamant, like insistent that like he's like, you need to come to On It. He was talking to me about like even like, you know, going through coaching tryouts there and potentially working there, which is not really part of my plan, but you know, On It's pretty fucking cool. So
for sure.
I would
and just
love
have
to
like that connection.
I would love to be associated with them in some way. But like, he was like, at the very least, you have to come to one of our coaches' workouts. They're like the hardest workouts of the week for the most part. It's how they make sure that their programming for the following weeks is like all set up appropriately and that it makes sense for like their members. And I was like thrilled to be asked to do so. And I went there last week and like once again just proved itself to be the coolest gym, the best coaches, the best group of people.
Were you like nervous going into it? Or were there feelings of like, I want to make sure I like show up my best and like, not show off, but like present well essentially?
Yeah, so I wouldn't, like, whenever I show up to a workout class, I'm usually like pretty confident I'm going to just destroy everybody. And like, I would be lying if I didn't say that like when I show up to a workout class that I'm like pretty much looking to like make it look easy while still like walking all over everybody else, like in terms of like the intensity level. Like I'll be very honest about saying that. And I knew that what I was getting myself into, was a harder class than normal, and also was a more intense group of people.
For sure.
And a more like competent group of people than like your
the
average
coaches.
fitness class.
It's not just like the gym members.
And the way that John described the coaches at On It, he said it's like the Avengers of fitness coaches,
cool.
which is so cool, and it's true.
Like he described it as like everyone has like their own thing. Like he's the boxing guy. There's someone there that does like agility training. Someone there for like everyone brings their own. The kettlebell guy. Yeah. So everyone has their own thing. So it's just like the collection of all these like amazing coaches to hit every different area.
So I knew it was like an elite group of people too. So I was like, I went in and I was kind of like, I know I'll be able to hang. Yeah. But I wanted to know that I was going to like, of course, like do really well. And 2 weeks prior, in fact, the day before I met John was the day that I had to leave the gym because I thought I was having a heart attack.
Gosh, yeah. Wait, that was when?
That was literally the day before I met him.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay.
So that was certainly like kind of on my mind. Like not to say that I was like letting that get in my head at all, but I was like, it's not like I didn't just recently quit a workout halfway through. And also because my pussy was acting up and I had that like tension in my psoas. I mentioned on a previous episode that like I pulled my back doing deadlifts because like all my shit was off. And leading up to that, I just wanted to make sure that like I was mentally going to be in great shape, and I was going to be physically in great shape, and my back was going to be in, good to go. So I got there. Everybody was awesome.
Yeah.
Really good group of dudes. And I say dudes because I think it was all dudes.
I was just going to say, were there any girls in it?
There was actually one woman.
Okay.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it. But great group of guys. Like really, we engaged well, and I think I crushed it. I mean, like it was leg day. When I walked in, and the head trainer there was like, "Yeah, John mentioned that you were coming. He said that he invited you. He's like, better get ready. It's leg day." And I was like, "Fuck yeah, let's do it."
Yeah, you're like, perfect.
That was for me. That was like music to my ears to
Yeah.
hear that it was leg day. It's like, yeah, that's my day. Yeah, okay, I'm good. I'm gonna be good now. So we squatted, and I put up a whole lot of weight.
I know.
I felt great doing it. They were cheering me on. It was really cool, and it was like a really fun, awesome time. So I'm really thankful for having that experience, and I'll be back to more in the future.
Yeah, when you because there were videos, of course, like on your Instagram and stuff, and people had posted and reposted stuff, and seeing the video of like you squatting and like the support that was around you, the coaching that was around you, and like one of them was like, I don't know the comment that the one guy made, like in the background of the camera, but something like he moves weight or something like that. Or there was something he said, but it was just like you being in a space where like you had that support, there's that community there, was like brought a tear to my eye. When I watched that video, I was so happy. I was like, oh my God, because
it was cool.
It's just really cool to see.
Yeah, it was great. And I can't wait to go back.
Yeah.
The reason why I don't go to On It, for anybody listening, is because like it's a solid 20 to 30 minute drive, which given my schedule is like difficult to make happen both ways. But they've given me every reason to make sure that I'm over there. So I think I'm going to probably join soon. And like, even if it's once a week or even once every 2 weeks, I think like getting there is going to be very much worth it.
Yeah, for sure.
And then also this week on Sunday, I had like some weird like.
Gosh.
So I've never got my wisdom teeth out, and I always knew that there was like a kind of like half-in tooth all the way back here in my upper right jaw. And every once in a while, like it would get inflamed or it'd be like weird. I would basically like be like biting the side of my like mouth or something, and it would just like flare up. And it's caused issues where like I can't open my mouth all the way before. But on Sunday, like that was kind of happening again. And then on Sunday night, like in the middle of the night, my face was against my pillow. I'm like, fuck, my face hurts. Like my face is actually really bothering me. And it kind of like was bad, like pretty bad throughout the course of the night. And I really couldn't like open my mouth all the way at that point. And then I woke up in the morning and my face was all like half swollen.
Yeah, you like came into like, I was getting ready for work and you came into the bathroom and you're like, I think my face is swollen. And I was like, yes, it is.
Yeah,
I'm like, does it hurt? You're like, it really hurts. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, it was like not good. And like, I'm not the kind of person, like I don't go to the dentist.
Yeah.
I did actually for a little while there. I had dental insurance and it was a good excuse to take a half a day at work. So I was going to the dentist there for a few years, but like I went like 10 years without going to a dentist. I don't know the last time I've been to a doctor. But this was like the kind of thing where like, man, my face is swelling. Like
and it's
I can't
super
open my
painful.
mouth. I couldn't like even like eat breakfast. I was
Yeah.
like, this is probably something where I should get it checked out.
Yeah.
And luckily we have a very good friend who's an oral surgeon. He's the man. He's like the absolute man. So you suggested I text him.
Yes.
And which I did.
Yes.
And he was basically like, I can have you in here at 11:15. I had no expectation of like anything except him just to like look at it and tell me what it is and like maybe prescribe medication. But I showed up. They immediately threw me in the x-ray machine. They put me in a room and he was like, yeah, that tooth's got to come out. And I was like, today? He's like, yeah, like we should. And I was like, okay, well, what about like the recovery? How long is the swelling gonna last?
Don't I have to prepare for this?
Yeah, don't I have to
all
prepare?
these
Like,
things?
I was like, am I gonna be able to work out today? Like, I had all the questions in the world. I was like, is my insurance gonna cover this?
Yeah.
I had no idea. But he was basically just like, we'll just do it right now. And I was like, what about like anesthesia? He's like, we'll put you on a local anesthesia.
Which just means like injections.
Yeah.
And this is a wisdom tooth. Like people go under like moderate sedation, general anesthesia for like wisdom teeth getting pulled.
Yeah.
So when you texted me or showed me, like, sent me a video, and you're like, I gotta get my tooth pulled, and I was like, you're all the way down in Buda, like, how, like, and then I was just like, I guess you're just gonna get really numbed up, and you're gonna be able to drive yourself.
So I mean, like, again, I texted him probably at like 8:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
Set an appointment for 3 hours later. Within me walking in the door, within like 5 minutes, he was like, "That tooth's got to come out," and 30 minutes later, I had no tooth. He had pulled out my tooth. So like we went back
in a
there.
Ziploc bag.
Yeah, I do have it. I should have brought it. It's upstairs I put it in my desk drawer.
Oh my God. I thought you were going to put it under your pillow.
I should. I'll do that tonight.
Who do you think is going to bring
I don't know. Maybe
the universe, tooth fairy?
Maybe the universe will tooth fairy me something if I put the tooth under my pillow. But
I said Joy would eat it.
It was I posted it on Instagram, but like he basically was like, "Yeah, let's do it." I was like, at first I was like, no, not because I was afraid, but just because it's like, I remember back when people got their wisdom teeth pulled when I was like, around the time that people get their wisdom teeth pulled. Yeah,
you took care of me after I had my wisdom teeth pulled.
Yeah, like what is that? You're usually like 20, 21, something like that maybe? 19?
Yeah, I was thinking I was like 19.
So like 19, 20 years old. Yeah. I remember like people like prepared for weeks for it, and then you're like in bed for a day or two, and like you're taking pain medication, which like I'm not about. So I was like, right now, today, and then I'm going to drive home? Like I'm just like, I don't understand how that works. But he was like, He's the man.
He really is. I'm like so thankful and grateful for like that we have.
He's the
him
man.
In our life.
For like getting me in and like just doing it and like making it so quick and effortless. But also like he's a G. Like he's just a fucking pro. He's great at everything that he does. It's Hill Country Dental
Oral Surgery.
Hill Country Oral Surgery. I'll shout him out. JC, Dr. Cavaretta. Again, Hill Country Oral Surgery, Dr. Cavaretta. I just want to make sure I say it several times for anybody who might need it. But he like threw me on the chair. Him and his assistant, they numbed me up. It was the scariest needle I've ever seen in my life. It was like truly like a horror movie. Like, kind of
like the metal needle?
Yeah, and it was like,
how big was the actual needle?
Big. Yeah. Like it was genuinely big. Like, and I'm not afraid of needles. And I'm also not gonna lie, like I wasn't afraid of the needle, but I was like, man, I should be afraid of that needle. Like that is a scary looking thing. And it was like in my jaw and up in the roof of my mouth, and then again. And then he's like, okay, well, come back in 5 minutes, I'll give you some more. I was like, okay, fine. And like honestly, like couldn't really feel it.
Yeah.
There was one where he put it like right in like the infection that I was having, and that one I kind of felt a little bit. But then like he's like, there's gonna be some noise and some pressure, and then like 2 minutes later, like my tooth is out. I was like, can I see it? And I think like for a minute I was like in shock. I was like kind of just like, okay, like I was not expecting this to happen like just 20 minutes ago. Like, and all of a sudden I got my tooth pulled, and then they're like, all right, head to your car. And I drove home.
And you didn't even go out the front door. You went out like the back door. You're like, what is happening?
So that was like through an interesting like
Monday morning
twist into my Monday. It's good.
That was not on your PEDs.
Interesting start of the week. No, definitely
not
was
on your
not
PEDs.
on my PEDs. That's for sure. But how about you? You've had an interesting couple of weeks too.
Yeah, since our episode with the that release when we did your psilocybin journey and me helping you facilitating that, I've had now a couple people reach out, and I have scheduled psilocybin journeys with some people. So a whole different little business I'm building there, little side business, and I am taking it super seriously because one, it's like a major responsibility.
Well, hold on. Let's maybe be careful about what you say as far as what you're doing for a business.
Okay, so it's not a business. I'm helping people.
But it's also like, I don't know.
I don't know.
You're ushering people through a transformative mental awakening.
I'm facilitating. I'm sitting there and helping. But I basically am doing like a pre-questionnaire for the journey, and I'm sending that to them to make sure there's nothing, one that I have to, like things that I want to know. Like, what's your experience like? Do you have any PTSD? Do you have any traumas? What's your intention with this? So I really am understanding where they're coming into it. And so I can then, of course, make sure it's a safe space for them and help them appropriately.
Yeah, I think that's really cool.
I don't know how else to say things like without like.
Yeah, no, I think like we've talked about the fact that you're kind of stepping into this role as a coach. You did an awesome job with me. I'm not going to go into that again because we said it last time, but like you had everything ready, you had everything prepared. You were mentally and emotionally like prepared to handle like whatever came up with me. And you asked me all the right questions leading into it, and like I think other people can sense that you're the right trip sitter for them, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, one of my friends said that. She's like, "Can you be my trip sitter?" I'm like, "Yeah, for sure."
And then like the fact that people are actually like, you didn't reach out to these people, like they all reached out to you specifically to do this for them, and I think like that's like speaks a lot to you.
Yeah.
It speaks a lot to like the experience, and like also like it is kind of, it's a scary thing, or it can be very scary,
and it's like a big responsibility like for me, because again, I need to make sure they're in like a safe space. I need to make sure I know truly like what they have like in here that potentially is going to come out. And so having like, again, a pre-questionnaire, having a conversation beforehand, and not just treating this like, oh yeah, like just come on over, or let's go meet somewhere and do this. Like it's a serious thing. So
you're just
taking it seriously,
stepping into this like I mean, like you've been a nurse forever, so you've always been a healer to some extent. But like stepping into more of like the, I don't know, like one-on-one outside of like a medical practice.
Like I guess like what, like more holistic, maybe?
I guess so. I guess that's one way of saying it, because you have the psychedelic stuff, and then there's also the retreat that we spoke about last week with Julia. And,
Sweet Julia.
And I know, and I know there's like some updates there, so I don't know if you want to cover that.
Yeah, so we've been having our meetings for the retreat on October 19th. It's going to be at a house on Lake Austin, which is going to be super cute. And one of our friends, she's offering that space, and she's now part of the planning of this retreat. She's very...
Her name is Erica.
Erica, she watches.
She's a super fan.
Yeah, for sure.
I call
She's
Erica
awesome.
one of our super fans. She's the one, oh man, I always wear my unfuckwithable bracelet that she gave me, and I don't have it on right now. Sorry, Erica. No, sorry to me. I love that. I love that bracelet. I wear that bracelet all the time.
Erica has joined us, and she's fantastic. We had a meeting last night, and we were talking about like what each person's going to do, each role. And Erica's basically like the fine details of everything. She's like, so for the event, my brain works with like, okay, where's the sign-in sheet going to be? How many chairs are going to be? Where they need to be set up? Like, she's such the detail-oriented person. And I was like, thank God. I'm like, because Julia's got all the creative and all the ideas, and obviously the main facilitator. I'm like more the operations, coming up with the task list, make sure everything's getting done and everything's going to run smoothly. But those little detail things, I tried to like start a list of that, and I gave up on the list. I was like, I'll look at that like in a couple weeks.
Well, because
maybe
like,
I'll do that in Italy.
You've never really like run an event like that.
No,
before,
for sure.
All. Like we've done some events like ourselves, but not. This is different.
Yeah.
It's like a paid event, and there's a lot like more operationally that needs to be completed.
Yeah.
Or like done for it. So like, you don't really have experience in that. So how are you supposed to know? Meanwhile, like I think Erica's fantastic
for
on
sure.
like that more like, I guess, detailed business side of things. We've already mentioned several times about how Julia is like an awesome coach, and she's creative, and she's like got all these like incredible ideas,
and she has the knowledge of the numeric psychology. Like she's so
as well, and wisdom. And then you're the task person. You're the one who like can come up with the game plan and like make sure that's being executed and like following the timelines, making sure we're hitting our dates. So it's really cool to see the three of us now come together and all our different strong suits and bringing it together for this team. So I can't wait for the event, and it's going to just build more and more as we go on the next few weeks. Yep. And again, it's called Success Code
Retreat.
Or at least
right now it's Success Code Retreat. We've built out an Instagram page. We're getting our Eventbrite or Posh. We're deciding back and forth kind of which one we want to do for the actual page to sign up. And there's going to be early bird purchasing as well. So It's going to be really cool.
So this will be out in about a week and a half or so, or I guess about a week now.
Yeah.
So hopefully by that point, there'll be something out there. And
it's deadline for the event page, sign up for the page by next Tuesday.
All right.
I have it
So
on my
we'll be
calendar.
out.
Yeah, it will.
So there you go.
It's on the task list. That is being done by Erica.
Task mastering even from afar. So that means that when this is out,
Yeah,
it'll be available. Cool.
exactly. So yeah, it's been a really good couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Or a week and a half, I guess.
Sweet.
For the most part.
For the most part. There was a small rough patch last week.
For just like
For both.
48,
And it was
72
rough,
hours.
it was rough for both of us. Not at all like what, again, we talked about a few weeks ago.
No.
Which was like, again, kind of like, that was me doing it to myself and putting too much pressure on myself and running myself into the ground. But last week there was like, I don't know, probably like Thursday evening. Yeah, it was like Thursday afternoon, evening into like Friday morning.
For sure, for me.
Yeah, for you for sure. It felt in our world, and I'm not going to go into the details of all the things, because like there's other people involved and things like that. But it didn't feel like it. There genuinely were like a handful of like things that happened in my world and in your world and collectively that it felt like they all felt like negative things, and they were easy to, of course, like I'm going to say, well, nothing is good or bad. It all just is. And that's, I do believe that. But like these were things that were in the moment challenging to see how they might be positive, I guess you could say.
Yeah. And the big thing that for me was a struggle was we were both like in our heads about the same thing.
Yeah.
And like, that's not good
Yeah.
because you and I were on this like hamster wheel.
Well, I think it's important to say, like, a lot of the times, if I'm in my head about something, you're the one who's kind of grounded and you can like help pull me out of it, and then vice versa. But this was a thing where
we're both affected.
I was, and it was actually kind of interesting is like, I was like teetering about being in my head about it. And then you were kind of like leaning into the being in your head about it. And then like you kind of like pulled me into it as well.
Yeah. And I was like, the more you're going in, I'm going in. I was like, we got to stop and get out of this. Like we both knew where we were and we both could not pull out of it.
Yeah.
It was, I remember like that Friday morning, we were like, you brought it back up and I was like, you have to stop talking about it because I'm trying to get out of my head about it. You're like, so you're in your head about it. And I was like, oh my God.
And again, this is from like maybe like
it's like 24 hours.
4 or 5 o'clock on Thursday to Friday morning.
Yeah,
like
8 a.m.
waking up at 8 a.m. So like again, less than 24 hours, but something we're like, is that what we think it is? I'm not so sure. What do we think?
What if this happens this way and this happens this way? Like we were going against everything we say like we should be doing.
Yeah,
we were giving so much like fear into like the unknown of the future.
And not just like unknown of the future, but just like, I mean, it's something. I'm not going to go into the details. Yeah, I'm not going to say what. But we were definitely in our head about it, and that was one thing that we were dwelling on in the midst of like a handful of other things that were kind of happening. That again, so I should just point out that thing in particular was not good or bad. We were making stuff up.
Exactly. We were making up a story about what was happening.
Exactly. And like, which of course is a terrible thing to do, positive or negative. It's a terrible thing to do. Because we didn't know what was happening. But there were a handful of other, again, negative things, we'll call them, that like occurred during that time. None of them were all that terrible or all that like, something that couldn't necessarily be fixed, but it all just like was a bunch of things that didn't feel really good happening at once. And then we let that taint and impact how we were feeling about this other thing was and is still up in the air.
Yeah.
And that was like a weird place for us to be because that hasn't happened really frequently. Like first off, like we're really good at brushing certain things off, and we're also pretty good about like
not making something out of nothing, essentially. And like that morning I went into work. I walk into work and it's like 8:02. and a patient's on the phone and the patient's upset about something and it's something like something small.
And meanwhile, I'm also like getting like emails that I don't like right
Yeah.
now, and like other things are and texts that like are just frustrating. So I'm like, a lot of weird stuff seems to be happening right now.
Yeah. And I'm at work and patient calls upset 8:02. She's yelling at me and I'm just calm and understanding, and I'm like, okay, let me go look into this and I'll give you a call back. We'll figure it out. No worries. I go and try to find the answer. More confrontation occurs, and normally I would just be able to like stay above it, brush it off, and I stepped away, delivered the message I needed to deliver, and then I walked out of the office and I called you.
Yep.
And I was like, I need to talk. And I had like in the parking lot, like pacing in the parking lot outside the building, just like crying and being like, I just got yelled at. This is happening. I don't understand. And I don't know the last time I've had like a moment like that.
Yeah. I leading up to that phone call, again, things were just kind of like weird and like some weird things were happening. I could also sense you that morning that your energy was like in a place that I haven't seen it in a while. Yeah. In a bad place that I hadn't seen it in a while. And I sat down literally to meditate. And I'm like, man, this morning does not feel like a good morning. Like, I don't know what's going on, but like I'm getting some whack vibes this morning. And I'm like putting on my meditation thing, like literally like hitting play on it. And then that's when the call from you comes in. And then I was like, oh shit, like something bad is happening.
Yeah.
It is happening. And I should say, like, this is also after the 888 Lionsgate portal.
Oh yeah, like exactly.
That kind of
That's like wasn't that the day we're supposed, when was the 8th?
The day before.
Okay. So yeah, we're supposed to be like manifesting all these great things, and I'm like, what is happening? Like the big shift, and I'm just not doing well with it.
Yeah. So like you called me, I was like, oh shit, like she's in the worst place than I even thought. And I said like, I understand that just happened and that's upsetting, but like you're also got these other things that are happening in your head right now, and like those are probably causing you to feel even worse about this thing that you probably would have felt bad about, but you probably wouldn't have felt this bad about.
Exactly. Like I typically in a situation like that would have been like, okay, like that says more about them than it does about me. I would have done like my mantras and my things I typically would say in a situation like that and be like, okay, I'm just going to stay above it and do my thing. But I was like teetering so much in like my head and my emotions for that 12, 18 hours that just crushed me. I mean, and you're like, well, I guess that's the cry you felt like you've been needing. I was like, I guess so. I'm like, I actually feel better now.
Yeah. So I went and meditated. I had a little bit of like a vision while I was meditating for an hour again, because I've been like getting really into them. And I went upstairs. I was like about to start work, and a couple other like literally like I got out of my meditation and there was an email waiting for me that was like some other bullshit thing that like I just was like, oh man, like okay. And I was actually like kind of holding it together. Like I think I was like, I'm sure I wasn't in the best place ever, but like that whole night before and that morning I was like, I am putting my head down and I'm getting to work. Like I'm just like not going to let this stuff affect me. I'm going to do everything. But what I said was I'm going to do everything the way I would, regardless of like my feelings right now, which is like typically how I do it. And I got upstairs. I was getting to work. I got like another thing that was like annoying happened to me, and like I could just like feel your energy all the way here at home. Because I'm kind of like thinking like, I'm okay. Like I'm powering through this, but I still have like this feeling in my gut, like something's not right. So I called you to say like more or less, you are like our manifester. Yeah. You are our bruja and our witch. And when I say our, I mean like in our relationship. Yeah. And her, like, and we've said in the past, you are the kind of person where if your energy is positive, everybody in the room can feel it. Everybody knows it. Like you have the laugh that everybody knows. You like have a certain like positivity about you when you're in a good place, and that's one of the reasons why people are coming to you for their sitting and all of that, and it's why like people have been like gravitating towards you so aggressively over the last like couple of years, especially over the last year. And but when your energy is negative, you hold it in, you bottle it in.
Yeah.
But it's like this really intense, palpable, dark energy that is noticeable to everybody in the room without you having to say a single thing or even do a single thing. I know. And with that, when you're in a positive place, great things happen for us. Not just for you, but like for both of us. Like great things happen. Like you manifest things. We've talked about that in the past. And even last week we talked about like with Julia, we talked about manifesting. And like you have a way where if you're in a happy place, you manifest all the awesomest shit in the world. When you're in a negative place, like the world feels like it's like falling apart. Like it's like, it feels like everything is being shaken to like its foundation. And like, I can sense that, especially like the more, we've always been close, but like the more close that we grow over time, especially more recently, like with our, like what we called like our spiritual awakening, like when you're feeling that negativeness, like my head can actually be like in an okay place, but like it like hits me in like my chakras, like for real. Like I feel it in a like pretty intense way, and that's basically what I was saying to you on the call, which was like you're the manifester. If you're in a bad place, like we're not gonna like accomplish what we want to accomplish and be what we want to be, and like I need you to like turn it around right now. Like the things that are happening are not unfixable. The other thing is like totally up in the air. And I said to you, like, I'm like, no matter what happens, we are going to be in a good place as long as we're together, as long as we have each other, we're going to be fine. Literally, I listed all the terrible things that could possibly happen that we were so worried about. And I was like, no matter all of these things could happen, if we're together, we are good. We're going to be fine. We're going to make it work. And I like kind of like could feel, I could feel all your tension like kind of releasing like throughout the course of the phone call.
Well, because you were like, okay, so what's the worst case scenario of this? You like made me like kind of like really think and answer like what's worst case scenario. And therefore, like, as we were talking about it, I was like, okay, well, yeah, like if that happens. And like, but we still have this and we still have this. So I was able to work through that and find the positive through it, which was very helpful. Cause then I was calmer.
Yep.
For sure.
Much calmer. And like, again, even on the phone call, I could feel it because I'm like a pit bull in that sense where it's like, if I'm not seeing that you are actually calmer, because you do that a lot where you'll just say you're calmer but you're not, and I'll like latch on and I'll say like, are you sure? You're saying that you're calmer, but your energy is telling me that you're not calmer.
I hate when you say that to me.
But that's
and then I'm just like, Poozle, don't get angrier. Don't get angrier.
And I'll have to say like, what is your energy telling you?
I know.
Or I said,
you're like, look what your energy is. And I'm like,
yeah, look what your energy is. Yeah. Look what your energy is telling me. Look what your energy is telling me.
Yeah.
And like, but like with this, like I could sense that you were actually like easing up. And then like within 15 minutes of getting off that call, the thing that we were kind of like worried about, we got like a positive reaction, which was a nice little, like, I guess, testament to exactly what I was thinking, which is that like, you stay in a positive place. And like that's something that we haven't talked about all that much on the podcast, but it's certainly a huge part of our relationship. And maybe we could talk about this in like really practical terms. By practical terms, I mean like material is like real world terms, or we could talk about it in like a more like woo-woo spiritual, like magician, witch, healer kind of way. But like in our relationship, we've talked about how like I'm the CEO and you're the COO, or I'm the steering the ship and you're in charge of maintaining the ship. But like all of that's like, again, the more like practical day-to-day way that we like handle stuff, like in the real world and like the 3D world. But like the way that we handle each other like emotionally, or like the way that I see it is like, you are the manifester, you are the witch, you are the bruja, you're the one who like, whatever power or energy you have, like you're the one who is actually capable of like making the things happen. And like that's been proven time and time and time and time again. When you're in a bad place, our life is not in a great place.
But like, yeah, for sure. And especially if like you're in a negative space and like putting out negative energy, who the heck is going to want to like come near you, and like what's going to be drawn to you?
Of course.
So like that's...
But when you're in a good place, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, our life is like outrageous. It's like, it's incredible. And like when you want something and you're in a positive place, like it always ends up happening. And like, that's so cool to me. And now we have like more and more friends that are starting to like see that in real time as well. And they're like, that's crazy that you're capable of doing that. I
had a friend be like, teach me how to manifest. And I'm like, I don't know if I don't.
And I have like, visualization and manifestation practice.
Yeah.
But I don't think I have the same level of like innate power that you have to do that. I think I think everybody's capable of manifesting some stuff and bringing their dreams to reality. And like I have like a specific process that I go through to make that happen. It's part of like my entire like program for my business.
Yeah.
But you have like a thing where like you just make it so like through your mental powers. And I don't know what that is or how it works or anything like that. But it only works when you're in a good place.
For sure.
And my job, spiritually, emotionally, within like the relationship, is to make sure that you are maintaining that positive emotional state and that positive mental state so that you're able to do it. So like I'm like, you're the manifestor or the witch or the magician or whatever, and I'm like the healer. I feel like in the relationship, or like my job is to make sure that like you're always like, you know, in the red as far as
you
like
help me process my emotions and like make sure I'm in like the right state.
Yes. And I guess that's kind of
like,
and
you do like a really good job at that.
And a lot of that, like that is literally like what I'm best at. I think I wouldn't say it's what I'm best at. It's like one of the things that I'm like really, really good at, and it's one of the things that I've developed over a really long time.
Do you think you're saying like you think you help other people with that kind of regularly?
Yeah. And like, of course, you can only, when it comes to something like that, you can only help somebody as much as they want to be helped, right?
Of course,
like, and as much as what they're willing to admit to themselves. And in the past, I probably have like been a little too aggressive in terms of like asking questions or like pushing people on like their thoughts or their beliefs or whatever, and it's like turned bad because
they get on the defensive probably pretty quickly.
Yeah, very quickly.
Because you're like going after their emotions and like their deeper feelings versus like the surface things that are happening that are causing them to be like this.
But like, especially if somebody like wants that. And they want to like know what their blockers are or what's stopping them. Like I think I have really good, a really like intense skill set to read them, understand what they're saying, understand what they think it means, but what it actually means. And then like kind of like get into their head and like what he was doing with the needle the other day, like poke the infection where it's like,
it's uncomfortable, but let's do this.
I think like I'm able to do that like in people's minds a little bit, which I certainly do for you and for some of my clients, I do it. And I think like as we get into the couples coaching more and more, I think that's going to happen like more frequently. And like there's a reason why I was a psychology major. And initially I wanted to be a psychologist because I always found that stuff like fascinating and I loved it until I realized that it didn't make a lot of money. At least like, unless you're like Dr. Phil or Dr. Drew or something like that, I guess it doesn't make all that much money. But now that's kind of like what I guess I am trying to do here.
But just putting like coach on it now. But how did you like learn, because that's like a skill.
Yeah.
Like, so how did you learn to do that?
I mean,
If I guess that's even like the right way to put it.
yeah,
Like, it just
it's because, I mean, there's a few reasons, and it certainly all stems from like childhood and all stems from my family.
has a lot of things to in all of us.
I grew up in New Jersey, Italian family. I would watch my mom and dad fight pretty aggressively, and it was never physical. There was never I never saw any like physical like beating or anything like that. But they were like really emotional, screaming at the top, like at the absolute top of their lungs fights.
Yeah.
On a like, I would say probably a fairly regular basis. Obviously, all couples fight to
Like
some extent.
once a week? Like what's like
Man, I was a kid. Like I
Yeah,
don't really know.
exactly. Yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, it was like, they got divorced when I was going into third grade. So
Yeah.
like we're talking like I'm 6, like
Yeah,
when
yeah,
they're
yeah.
together. So like I can't really tell you like how frequently. I could tell you like frequently enough that like I remember.
Yeah, it's like a core
lot of
memory.
them.
Yeah.
Like I remember a lot of that happening.
Yeah.
And they got divorced, and they're both very highly emotional people. And I would say for both of them, like quite incapable of controlling their emotions. I don't think like there's anything wrong with me saying that. And like at a young age, I remember being like off-put by it in a way where I'm like, this doesn't feel like.
What age?
Like
Because you're now old, or like they're divorced. It was like,
no, like even when they were together.
Okay.
I remember being like, this doesn't feel like the way things should be. Like this is
Yeah.
like too much like energy. Like, I'll say like at the same time and I've sort of alluded to this in the past, but like as much as there was like fighting, there was also like a lot of love and
Yeah.
a lot of laughter, especially like at my mom's house. Like we were always like, me, my mom, and my sister were like laughing like so much, and it wasn't like make believe fun and laughing to like make up for all the arguing and all the screaming and all the fighting. It was like true and genuine, and like it was always like really like very fun, like when we were like laughing and goofing around. But like it was just like the pendulum swung
Exactly, I
like
was gonna say, it's,
really
like, the
aggressively in
extreme.
like two directions.
Yeah.
And when my parents got divorced, I became essentially like the intermediary for like both of them at like 7 years old or whatever, where like my dad would talk shit about my mom and get like all angry and like wild to me, and then my mom would do the same thing about my dad to me
Yeah.
and my sister, and it's like I'm just in the middle of like just all this crazy
Yeah.
energy like directed
like a kid
at each
shouldn't-
other, but like
yeah.
I'm in the crossfire of it, and like that's probably a pretty standard like divorce story, I would think, or like
Yeah.
product of divorce.
Unfortunately, yeah.
And then after that, when I grew up thereafter in a house with my mom, my sister, and my grandma, and I was the only man in the house. So a lot of emotions, a lot of feminine emotions, a lot of unbridled like feminine emotions. And again, like New Jersey, loud Italian family. So I was like in a house where like that was chaotic
Yeah.
too. And I was like the man of the house. And like I never
you
really,
I was gonna say, would
never
you call
really
yourself that?
considered myself like the man of the house.
Yeah.
Like I didn't think of it that way. But I do know that like growing up, I was the one who, I guess like the way I'll describe it is like I was able to have all this like angry, emotional, frantic, chaotic energy thrown around me, or like my dad like talking shit about my mom like on our drives in his car like every other weekend when he like picked us up, and it would just be like an hour and a half of like him just like shitting on my mom like to me
Yeah.
and my sister. And like I'm not like speaking ill of the dead, like everybody knows that that's what happened, and like there's been a lot of reconciliation like over that period of time, so like it's just the truth of, as far as like what happened.
Yeah.
But the reality is like what that did is like I had to learn how to like see other people's emotions and like not let it affect me.
Yeah.
But also at the same time like understand how to like almost like aikido those emotions that were being like thrown my way, or like jujitsu them into a way where okay, my mom is yelling about something, but I know that's not actually what she's yelling about. So I have to like ask her a question in order to understand like what the real issue is here, because like it's not about like the dishes in the sink or something like that, or like whatever.
For sure.
So it's like, okay, mom, like I understand that I didn't do the dishes today. Or whatever. I'm not saying that that's even everything that happened. Like I don't even know.
Yeah. Did
Like,
you even have to do the dishes in your
I
house?
never had to do any dishes.
Kidding.
I know. But like, I know that you're yelling about this thing, but that's not actually the thing. Like, I'm trying to like gently like walk them down to like the core of like what is actually bothering them. And then like also like when they're really like throwing like heat my way, whether they're angry at me or whether they're angry at something else or somebody else or each other.
Yeah.
And I'm the one who's like in that crossfire. It's like understanding how to like weather that storm, not really let it affect me all that much, and like almost just like take that beating for like what it is, and then like let them almost exhaust themselves, and then go, but how did that make you feel? Or something, you know what I mean?
Like their therapist at like a young age.
But
like that's like really, like high level stuff. Because like a young kid could probably
I never actually asked them like, how did that make you feel?
But like a young kid could probably like do a couple things. Like kind of like the ocean analogy you did last week. Like you weather the storm, and like you ride with it and you learn how to work with it and dig into it. You let it crush you, and therefore like again the kid becomes like essentially just like a victim, or just like they then also may take like the side of like one of the parents and not be able to see and understand like there's something else going on here.
Yeah.
Like it's not just one-sided. So you're
and like I'm not saying like I was a prodigy at like
no, but
I wasn't like Sigmund Freud at in third grade, but like I will say like I built those skills up throughout my childhood to be able to like navigate that, because like there's times where like, dude, like when I'm in a house with my mom, my sister, and my grandma, like I just like I feel like I bore the brunt of like all their like issues that they were handling, like and they would just like come at me, and I just had to like kind of sit there and like deal with it, but then also like walk them down. What I'll also say is like I like, what was I gonna say? Like from a negative perspective, what that also allowed me to do is like if I was getting attacked from my mom or from my dad or my sister or anybody else for that matter, and it was about something that like truly was about me and something that like I would like defend, like I was really good at being really stubborn and like digging my heels in the sand and being like, nope, that's what I think, or nope, that's my belief. Like, why do you think otherwise? Like, explain to me why I'm wrong. Like, just like
make them like
make
answer.
them like put. I'm asking you to like poke holes in my argument or my belief or whatever. And I was like, so I could certainly be like defiant in that way, but like I basically never just like kowtowed to them when they told me something and I didn't agree with it. I'd be like, that's not the case, and like I'll tell you why. Like you tell me why I'm wrong, sort of. So that was like probably like the more like shadowy version of what I was doing, was like also like turning it against them when like again bearing that like heat, and rather than like apologizing or like again kowtowing to them or running away, I would just like sit there, take it, and then like give it right back to them, like to some extent.
Yeah.
But with that being said, turning it over to you, because like that's how I built this thing that I have been able to like cultivate over my lifetime.
Yeah.
And there's a reason, I guess, why maybe for you, like you do keep your emotions more bottled in.
For sure.
Okay. I imagine it's a like mirror image, maybe
exactly
of the
like
story.
The whole conversation. And I know hopefully we can get to this of like the who we are and how we become as people. That conversation of like nurture versus nature. Maybe we can get into that, like wrap that up at the end. But yeah, so my parents just celebrated their 52-year wedding anniversary.
Yep.
Jersey couple, and it was like you're talking like your extremes, love and laughter, screaming and fighting. Mine was just like in the middle. And it was like in the middle, all is good. I have to say, like, loving and affection, like I didn't see much of that. And if there was a fight, it was something that would like blow up like over time or from things over time. So it's like all these emotions, all these things just kind of being pent up and not actually like worked through. Because like, I mean, you can scream and fight and like, maybe you can get somewhere. Maybe you can like work through something. Maybe something will come out, but nothing really ever did. So like the fights that they would have were just explosions, essentially, of like emotions that weren't discussed all the time. So that's where I would say I learned you don't talk about your emotions and you let things build up and you eventually, or you let it become a problem.
Or you let them out in like little sneaky side.
Yes, passive aggressively.
Ways.
Or like, yeah, like all of a sudden something would happen and like, you know, a fight would like, or an alternate argument would happen. And something from like 2-3 weeks ago would be thrown into the argument. And like, they'd be like, my dad would be like, where did that come from? Instead of like in the moment.
Yeah, I think like that's also typical. I think like
exactly like nothing that is
typical.
like nothing that ever happened. Like my childhood was fantastic.
Yeah.
My parents are fantastic, but it's just funny to see how we are just a product of like what we see and how we're conditioned and raised. Because like for me, you just like didn't really talk about your emotions. You didn't like dig in. You didn't confront things. Like I never, if I was defiant and I said, no, I don't want to do that, there was never like a pushback or like a why. Well, why are you doing this? Why are you this? Like I never was really questioned.
Yeah.
And one of my sisters actually said the same thing. We were talking a couple months ago and she said the same thing. Is like, we were never really like told or like made us like stand our ground and like defend it.
Yeah.
And that for me, like when you and I would get into arguments and you're like, well, why are you saying this? Why is this happening? And I couldn't come up with an answer.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, well, that's what I feel. And you're like, well, why do you feel that? And I was like, that's what I feel. Like I struggle and I still struggle to this day with that because it's ingrained in me that like I don't dig through my emotions. It just is what it is.
So I grew up with this, I grew up building a skill set to pry into people's emotions, and you grew up with like this hard rocky exterior around your emotions. So it makes sense that like we're here together now, but like that is the reality is as like throughout our relationship and early on certainly, and like less and less so as time goes on, but even still to this day, I can sense when something's wrong with you, and I ask you, and you'll say there's nothing wrong, and I'll say you're telling me there's nothing wrong, but your energy is telling me that there is something wrong, and then you'll be like, there's nothing wrong, Mo. Your energy is telling me there is something wrong, and then like eventually you admit that there is something wrong. Or like usually we'll start with like, I'm only upset because you're asking me.
That's what I do. Oh, you're asking me. You're upsetting me because you're asking me.
These are all just like, at this point, these are all just like red flags that like I'm onto something, or I guess green flags that I'm onto something. So I'm able to like help you talk through them. But you're right, like, and you do a better job of it now. But you found it difficult to describe why you felt a certain way about something or why you made a certain decision, because I don't think you ever really were challenged to think critically about the feelings or thoughts or decisions that you were having.
Yeah, and like my parents, like they didn't really argue with us or fight with us, and which again made great for a great childhood.
Sure.
But like it also was kind of, it hindered me for sure, because like I didn't have those crucial conversations. I was never like pinned down as to like what was going on. And like now I like as an adult, I'm like begging for that conversation from them. I'm like, pry, ask me a question, dig. And like, they're just like, no, like we're good. We're like, you're our daughter. We love you. And like, I mean, the whole like, love you.
Yeah.
This is like such an interesting like story. I remember this is when we started dating, and you're ending the call with your dad, and I think he said it first, and he's like, all right, I love you. And you're like, all right, love you too. I'll talk to you later. Yeah. And I remember being like, And I don't think I said anything to you. I just noted it. And I was like, Jarred's father just said that he loves him. That's weird. Like a man, first of all, a father telling a son that he loves him, I thought was like weird. And then I was like, huh. And then like I remember you saying it to your mom a lot. You'd always like go in, like kiss her goodnight. And she'd be like, oh, love you, honey. Like all this, like so much love was like said and spoken and felt.
We always said I love you.
Yeah.
I said I love you to my dad every time we got off the phone. I said I love you to my mom all the time. And like now I'd say I love you to you like a billion times, like literally like a billion times a day.
Yeah.
I'm always telling you that I love you.
Yeah. And like for me, like that just wasn't like how we ended conversations. Or like how we like left the room, like it was, or like this whole saying goodnight thing, like we didn't have that. And again, my childhood was fantastic, but that expressing the emotion was not there. And for sure it's affected me in my like adulthood in the sense of like being able to like express that emotion and then receive that emotion. Mm-hmm. And it's cool to see like that all like unwrapping and like that callus breaking out and coming free, especially like in like a coaching role.
Yeah, I think like that callus is like at this point for you, I think that callus is like a lot less than it is probably for most people. I think you do a really good job of it now. Yeah. But like it took a long time.
It took a long time.
You literally would just like say things and then like have no like way of like backing it up or defending it or like anything. So this week we've been working on our branding for our coaching business. Yeah. It's going to be called Supernova Couples Coaching. Uh-huh. Supernova. It's actually called Supernova Couples Synergy Coaching. Yeah. Couples Synergy Coaching, which we're really proud of that term. And we have designers creating our logo currently, and I'm gonna show you all these. I will in the evening. I'll like throw it up on the big screen TV upstairs in the office or the flat screen TV upstairs. Not that big.
Throw it up on the big screen.
And, I'll be like, I'm not gonna say anything about these logos. I want to know what you think about them. Mm-hmm. And she'll be like, I don't like that one, and I'll have to like pry and say like, well, what don't you like about it? I don't know. I just don't like it. Well, like, can you? And I have to like pry to get you to fully express in words more as clearly as possible, like specifically how it makes you feel. Why you don't like it because it makes you feel what? Like, what does it feel like to you?
I know.
And even doing that is like a little bit of a challenge. But like again, like you're miles beyond where
I
you
used
would
to be.
have been. Yeah, for sure.
I know. It's like really interesting how expressing like the feeling that I'm having, like what it is and why I'm having it. And again, I'm like much better than I used to be, but it's something I have to like go, like I have to like actively think about. And I have to be like, okay, I'm feeling this, and like, why am I feeling this? Yeah. Where for you, it's just like, I'm here, I'm feeling this.
I have a whole podcast about how I'm feeling. I have a whole podcast where all I do is talk about my emotions, probably because I grew up in a house with 3 women.
And that's where I'm like, I'm not going to tell you anything.
So like, I guess like that's just all to say, like, we're clearly a product of our environments, first and foremost. Again, like, I say I love you all the time. What's up, baby?
Hi, Joy.
I love you, Joy.
I know, little Joy. So would you say the nurture versus nature? Where do you stand?
Man, that's a lot to get into with as much time as we have left. I think it's a lot more nurture than people think it is. Yeah. I think there's a lot, like there's clearly plenty of nature involved. Mm-hmm. There definitely is. When it comes to, especially like physical attributes, physical skills. But I don't, and by physical skills, I also mean things like math, for example. Like to me, that's physical because it's like it's a cognitive function of your brain. Versus like I don't know, something that's more like energy based, I guess. But like I think that there is a clearly important aspect that nature brings to the table, but I think who we truly become when it's all said and done is far more a factor of nurture who you're around, what you're taught to believe, what you're taught not to believe, and like those factors, I think,
Just believe of like who you're supposed to be,
and what you're
like
what you're capable of.
Yeah, like your whole like growth fixed versus fixed mindset.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot we can actually talk about that. Maybe we won't dive into that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like that's kind of what I guess I'm saying is like I'm obviously a huge believer in growth mindset and that like people aren't stagnant and they're not like fixed. That there's tons of opportunity to grow. And expand on like your skills and your talents. It's simply a matter of like putting the effort in. I think there's probably some things that people are more innately skilled at, or they have innate talents. There is the physical nature component of it, but I don't think it's as like immalleable as most, or unmalleable as most people would like think it is. I think there's like a huge nurture factor. And I also think that regardless of what family you grew up in or where you grew up or the beliefs that you were taught, I think all of that can be unlearned. It's just some people are balled up in tighter knots than others. And I think that like if you're willing to unravel those knots and take the time to truly unravel those knots and do the hard work and
maybe tap into numeric psychology
or psychedelics or like okay,
like there's so many tools.
I won't get into like therapy right now because again that's a whole conversation in and of itself, but like true introspection, true reflection, being willing to get uncomfortable. I think that like you can undo a lot of like the fixed beliefs that you hold and expand tremendously. So maybe just like you are now more capable of expressing your opinions and your emotions and being open to expressing it.
And also being willing to like, the other thing, this is just about the whole like coaching aspect. Like I would have never thought myself in this role. Like a nurse, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take care of like your physical and like what's going on. I'm going to get you better. You're going to go home and this and that. But like coaching, like I have to pry and like ask like really tough questions and like have these crucial conversations and let emotions come out. So like being comfortable and like in that space is like shocking for me. Yeah. Because like I would always be like, no, I'm not dealing with that.
For sure.
But like I love to do it now. I love to have those conversations.
And for me, like I'm hard-headed. I'm really stubborn with myself. I used to be really stubborn with a lot of other people, and that's something that I had to like learn and get out of. And I think I've done it. Like I think I do like a much better job of that. For sure.
Now. And like you are able to like talk to people, give them the feedback, but come from it with a softer touch.
Yeah, for sure.
Instead of like, no, this is how it is.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, I mean, I'll tell you this is how it is, but like
a softer approach.
Yeah, a softer approach. Let's wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
Any final thoughts? Any final words?
I love you.
I love you too. I love you, baby. I love you. 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 I always say
I love you. Infinity times infinity plus one.
I love it. Come here. Kiss. All right. See you, everybody.
Look at all that love I can show.
You're the best.